Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and truly faced your own reflection? Not just the physical you, but the deeper truth that lies beneath. The mistakes you've been carrying, the weight of unspoken regrets, the decisions that keep you up at night, haunting your thoughts. We live in a world obsessed with perfection. A world where social media highlights only showcase our victories, where admitting weakness feels like surrendering power. But I'm here to tell you something revolutionary, something that might shake the very foundation of what you believe. Your mistakes are not your enemies. They are the stepping stones to your greatness. The question isn't whether you'll make mistakes. The question is, will you have the courage to own them? Think about it for a moment. Every great leader, every innovator, every person who's ever achieved something remarkable, they all share one common trait. The ability to look at their failure square in the face and say, yes, I messed up, and more importantly, here's what I'm going to learn from it. But we're conditioned differently, aren't we? From childhood, we're taught to hide our flaws, to brush our mistakes under the carpet, to maintain this facade of perfection, as if somehow being human became a weakness. Let me tell you what real weakness is. Real weakness is living in denial. Real weakness is letting your pride build walls around your growth. Real weakness is choosing comfort over truth. And that's exactly what we do when we refuse to admit our mistakes. You see, every time you deflect responsibility, every time you point fingers at circumstances, every time you say, it wasn't my fault, you're not protecting yourself. You're imprisoning yourself in the darkness of denial, in the chains of false pride, in the cage of stunted growth. But here's the beautiful truth. The moment you admit a mistake, the instant you own your actions, something magical happens. You reclaim your power. Because admitting mistakes isn't about shame. It's about freedom. Freedom from the exhausting pretense of perfection. Freedom from the burden of denial. Freedom to grow, to evolve, to transform. Think about a plant growing through concrete. It doesn't deny the obstacle. It doesn't make excuses. It finds a way through. That's what admitting mistakes does for you. It breaks through the concrete of your limitations. Every time you say, I was wrong, you're not showing weakness. You're demonstrating incredible strength. The strength to be vulnerable. The strength to be honest. The strength to be human. But here's what most people don't understand. Admitting mistakes is just the beginning. It's the key that unlocks the door to transformation. The first step on a path of endless possibilities. A path that leads to your highest potential. You know what fascinates me about human potential? It's limitless, yet we limit ourselves. We build these invisible cages of fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being seen as imperfect. Fear of our own truth. But what if I told you that your mistakes are actually gifts? Precious opportunities wrapped in uncomfortable packages. Each one carrying a lesson that could transform your life. Each one holding a key to unlock your next level of growth. I've seen it happen countless times. Someone makes a mistake, a big one. Their first instinct is to hide it, to deny it. But the moment they choose courage over comfort, the moment they step into their truth, everything changes. Your mistakes are like mirrors. They show you where you need to grow, where you need to learn, where you need to evolve. But only if you're brave enough to look. Think about the last big mistake you made. The one that makes your stomach churn just thinking about it. The one you've been trying to forget. What if that mistake wasn't your enemy? What if it was your greatest teacher? Because here's the truth about growth. It doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It doesn't happen in the space of perfection. It happens in the messy middle. In the moments when you're facing your own shortcomings. Every time you admit a mistake, you're telling yourself a powerful truth. You're saying, I'm strong enough to be imperfect. I'm secure enough to be vulnerable. I'm wise enough to learn. This is where real transformation begins. In the space between who you are and who you're becoming. In the gap between your mistakes and your growth. but it requires something from you. Something more valuable than pride, more precious than comfort. It requires your honesty, your willingness to be real. Because when you're real with yourself, when you stop playing the blame game, when you step into full responsibility, that's when you become unstoppable. That's when you begin to soar. Your mistakes don't diminish your worth. They don't define your future. They simply illuminate the path to your next evolution, to your higher self. Think of every mistake as a chisel, sculpting you into your masterpiece. Every admission of error is a stroke of the artist's brush, creating the masterwork of your life. This journey isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's not about never falling. It's about rising every time you fall, with new wisdom, new strength, new understanding. And here's what most people miss. The power isn't in avoiding mistakes. The power is in owning them, in learning from them, in growing through them. The most extraordinary power you possess is not in being flawless. It's in being authentic, in standing in your truth, even when that truth is uncomfortable. Every time you admit a mistake, you're not just acknowledging an error. You're declaring your commitment to growth. You're choosing evolution over ego, truth over comfort. Think about the greatest leaders you admire, the ones who've left their mark on history. They weren't perfect. They were honest. They were real. Because true leadership, true influence, true power comes from authenticity, not from pretense. When you hide from your mistakes, you're not just deceiving others. You're betraying yourself. You're saying, I'm not strong enough to face my truth. But you are stronger than you know. Every mistake you've made, every failure you've experienced, every setback you've encountered, they're all part of your story. Your beautiful, imperfect, powerful story. And here's the transformation that happens when you finally embrace your mistakes, when you stop running from your truth. Your weaknesses become your strengths. Your failures become your foundation. Because admitting mistakes takes more courage than avoiding them, shows more strength than denying them, creates more growth than hiding them, builds more character than excusing them. You see, your mistakes don't define you, but how you handle them does. Your failures don't limit you, but how you respond to them shapes you. Your setbacks don't stop you, unless you let them. So I challenge you today to step into your truth, to own your journey, to embrace your mistakes as the teachers they are. Stop carrying the heavy burden of perfection. Release the exhausting facade of flawlessness. Embrace the freedom of being authentically you, with all your mistakes, with all your lessons, with all your growth, because that's where true power lies. Not in never falling, but in rising every time you fall. Not in never failing, but in learning from every failure. Your mistakes are not your enemies. They are your stepping stones, your teachers, your guides on this journey of becoming. So stand tall in your truth. Own your story. All of it, the victories and the failures, the triumphs and the mistakes. Because when you do, you become unstoppable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And that's the greatest power of all. Remember this always. Your mistakes don't make you weak. They make you human. And your willingness to admit them makes you extraordinary. So step forward now, into the light of your truth, into the power of your authenticity, into the strength of your vulnerability, into the greatness that awaits. Because your next level of growth, your next breakthrough, your next transformation is waiting on the other side of admitting your mistakes. The time is now. The power is yours. The choice is clear. Will you hide from your truth, or will you rise through it? The journey of greatness begins with 3 simple words. I was wrong, and ends with 3 more. But I learned that's the path to unleashing your potential. That's the road to becoming unstoppable. That's the way to your highest self. Through truth, through growth, through transformation, the question isn't whether you'll make mistakes. The question is, are you ready to own them? Are you ready to learn from them? Are you ready to grow through them? Because when you are, that's when everything changes. That's when you truly begin to soar. That's when you become unstoppable